Hi guys, it's Cindy Lynn with my Inky Fingers. Thank you so much for visiting me today on my YouTube channel and blog. For today's Ways to Use It Wednesday, where I show you how to use something that you probably already have in a way you haven't thought of, we're going to do a background stamp. Now, if you don't have this one, that's okay. Find another background stamp and play along. And I am going to call this partial embossing, I guess. I've seen it done a few times. I don't know what it's called. However, we're going to only partially emboss, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So I'm going to use the Breathtaking Bouquet stamp set. I'm going to use the largest stitched shape die from the Stitched Shapes dies and the Thank You die, and we're actually only going to use the U, and I'm going to show you how to take that apart, no problem, and save the thank for another card. And then there's a sentiment out of Forever Blossoms that I thought was perfect to go with you. There is the word you on there, so we're going to take that off. Obviously, we're going to use Versamark because we're embossing, and Shimmery Crystal Effects. And if you don't have Shimmery Crystal Effects, don't sweat it. You can totally use regular crystal effects, and I'll show you how. For your cardstock, we've got Basic Black, we've got crumb cake, yes, and the Whisper White, and I think, yes, the Rococo Rose as well. So I have the aqua painter there, and we're going to use that for some painting later. What you're going to want is, I'm going to pull my board away, but you're going to want a water resistant board. It's not watercolor paper that we're coloring on for the crumb cake, of course, but if you tape it down to a board, it will help it dry flat. And I'm going to show you a little tip and trick in this video so that if you don't tape it to a board and you get very curled paper from watercoloring or from heat embossing or what have you, I'm going to show you how to flatten it like a pro. So you're going to want to use your Stamparatus. Now, you don't have to use the Stamparatus. It just will make your life easier. And I've got my little acrylic L positioner in there. I'm going to do a video later this week on the Stamparatus and all those goodies that I have in there. So watch out for that, and then you'll understand why I have that. Basically, it just keeps my stamp away from the edges of the Stamparatus so I get a nice clean impression, and I'm not worrying about the edge of the actual apparatus, and my stamp can stamp on my actual cardstock. So I'm going to ink this up with lots of Versamark right after I use my embossing buddy to de-staticify my paper. That's going to help the embossing powder stick only to the paper. And yes, I said de-staticify. I like that word, and I think I made it up. I may not have. Other people may be saying it, but I think it's kind of fun. So I'm going to stamp this 2 times because I didn't get a super good impression the first time. And I'm using my chamois just to kind of glide across the door of the Stamparatus. So there we go. Now we'll get our embossing powder out. And I have sped this up to about times 400 just for time purposes. So you're going to get whichever color you want to use. I chose to use gold for this particular card, but you can use any color that you want. And you're going to lay all your embossing powder down, but you are not going to touch your heat gun yet. So this is where I'm going to slow the video down so that you can see better. That should be a little bit more helpful. So what you're going to want to do, and this flower that I'm going over right now, hindsight, I should have saved that flower, but nevertheless, it is what it is. No one will know when I give away the card, but you guys will know because you saw it in the video. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take a nice fine tip paintbrush and go around and just remove the embossing powder from wherever you don't want it. Now, I did want it on that flower, and I kind of went in. If you go with a light hand, you won't take away too much of your Versamark. So you can normally go back in with some more embossing powder and add some more back on there. So this is a labor of love for sure. It took me a good 25 minutes to do this, but the end result is just stunning because the Versamark will now stay on your paper, like the actual watermark, and then your embossing powder is still there. So when you heat it, it's going to turn gold, and the background is just going to stay like a watermark. Now, I'm going to apologize for my voice. For some reason, my internal clock wanted to get up at 3:30 this morning, and it's now noon, and I feel like I need to go to bed, but that's okay. I have work to do, and you guys need videos. So this one, I'm hoping you guys really love, and you're going to definitely try this out and let me know if you do. So I am going to just forward a little bit here because you guys get the point, right? Okay, so we'll speed it up here for the actual embossing. So the nice thing about that water resistant board, you can also just heat emboss right on it. And the mat I'm using underneath there, I'm going to tell you guys about that because I got it for Christmas. It's awesome. I love it. But I'm going to wait until I start using it and explain why there's paint in it. Now, this little mechanical eraser, love this thing. If you have embossing powder anywhere you don't want it, this thing is totally going to take it off. Love, love, love it. Now it's time to tape down your cardstock to your water resistant surface. This blue tape, game changer. If you don't have it, definitely check out the link and look at it because it won't tear your paper. It really helps keep your paper flat. I absolutely love this. A little bottle with one of those little vials in it is very helpful. That's a stevia bottle. I just soaked it in the sink and the label came right off. And an aqua painter. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our watercolor pencils, and those paper towels, I'm going to cover them, but you know what? Once they're dry, you can reuse them 100 times over. I'm just going to cover them over for the video so it doesn't look so bad. Anyhow, as for the paint I've got there. Now, this is the waffle flower mat. Love this thing. And it comes with this plastic thing covering it. And I saw a video, Christina Werner, and she cut it right where I just showed you and saved that piece because it was the protectant hard plastic shell. And it's perfect to put your paints in because then you just pick that up, take it to the sink, and wash it out. Now, I'm going to pull this out and show this to you guys. I'm going to see if I can find a link for it, but mine is pretty much empty, but it occurred to me I should have done this in those little pots because see how that's all dry? All I have to do is add water to it and I can totally use it again. So this isn't a total waste because I can use them again because I did make one of these cards already, right? So I'm going to pull out the two watercolor pencils there, and those are the Flirty Flamingo and the Melon Mambo. Now I am going to speed this up for you guys. And I'm going to speed it up quite a bit because it takes a little bit of time to get your watercolor into the actual pans. So all I do is I dip my aqua painter in that little glass bottle there the very first time just to get it wet. And then I just kind of rub my aqua painter along the little tip there of the watercolor pencil just to pick up the actual pigment. And then all I'm doing is just putting it down in the pan. Now I cleaned that one out in the corner because I put the dark in the light and I didn't want to put the light in the dark because it would have changed the hue. So normally I work left to right and light to dark, but this one I've got backwards. So you can kind of put your pencil down in there and rub it off, or you can just, I'm going to sharpen it because mine's getting a little bit dull. But this I find is the best way to blend your watercolor pencils. I really, really, really love this technique. I find that when I use my pencil direct to the paper, I don't get the same kind of blend. I like to use it for highlighting. Anyhow, I have a little scratch piece of paper there that I just tested the actual hue and made sure what my water consistency was. And this is super, super easy. You're not going to believe how easy this is. All you need to do is just test that you've got a nice light amount of color. The lighter the better, because if it's too dark, it's harder to lift the color off of non-watercolor paper. So light is better because you can always make it darker after. And there is absolutely no rhyme or reason to this. It's just a laying down your watercolor in a random way. It doesn't have to be perfect. If there's some of the crumb cake peeking through, all the better. It's more organic. And all you're going to do is just lay down your base, the very light one, which is the Flirty Flamingo. So I'm going to get that all laid down on 3 of the flowers. And then I'm going to kind of let them dry because as I come in with the darker one, the Melon Mambo, that's where I'm going to get my dimension and whatnot, right? I keep pausing because my dog is snoring up a storm underneath my desk, and he's so old and deaf and I can't tell him to wake up, and I'm rubbing him with my foot, and I think it's making him sleep even more. So I'm sorry for the tonal changes there. Anyhow, so I'm just going to get that Flirty Flamingo all laid down on 3 of the flowers. Now, I would have put this one on that corner flower that I wiped all the embossing powder off on, because I did do that on my other card. You'll see it in the photo, right? But I wiped my embossing powder off of it. Now that little container that I just pulled out there with the blue sponge, awesome, awesome, awesome. I could not live without it. It's one of my must-have hacks and tools. It's from the dollar store. It comes with a airtight lid that clicks 4 times around. And I took a sponge, one of those scrubby sponges, one side scrubby, one side's not. You could use any sponge. And I just cut it to fit, and I keep water in it, and OMG, that helps clean my aqua painter brush or any of my paintbrushes so fantastic. So just a little tip, you want to use one of those for sure. So coming in now with the Melon Mambo, I'm just dabbing my aqua painter in a random fashion in the areas that I think would be darker. Obviously the centers of the flower, and then if you look at your petals, anywhere that the petal would be close to the middle of the flower, the edges, the outside areas of the petals should be lighter. You're going to see me flipping my board back and forth a lot too. My window was open, and I was wondering, why am I having so much glare and issue? My window was open. My window wasn't open. It's winter. My blinds were open, and I'm going to get up at some point and close them, so you'll see a shift in the color. But we've been getting some sunshine lately, and I'm starved for sunshine, so I have the blinds open, and I usually close them when I'm filming, but nevertheless. So when you use your Melon Mambo, put in a little of the early espresso just to darken it up a little. I found it was a little bit too light, and it kind of blended in. I didn't get much dimension. So that's the nice thing about the watercolor pencils, is you can mix the colors any way you want there in the pan before you put it on your paper, and you can see the hue, right? So you want darker in the yellow, in the middle of the flowers that are yellow. And then I'm going to come in now with the Calypso Coral and the Real Red. I'm going to add a little bit of the espresso to the Real Red. And I'm just going to play some music for the rest of the painting. If that's something that you like, and you don't care to hear me blab, then let me know. But if you like hearing me talk while the process is going, then let me know too, because I need to know. So here's some of my cool music. Now I'm going to peel up all of my blue paper. Now this isn't watercolor paper, this is regular paper. So you have to be super, super slow and pull flat down and towards you. Don't pull straight up. You'll actually see on this side here how I pull it. There we go, once I get a corner. So I'm going to lay it flat down and just pull it back towards me. Because again, it's not watercolor paper, it's regular paper, right? So you want to be really careful. Now, here's your Inkie tip for the paper when it's warped like that. Mine's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. But when your paper warps, run it through your Big Shot. If it's warped because of heat embossing or it's warped because of watercoloring, whatever the case may be, just put it on the actual plate. Mine's the magnetic plate. Put the 2 other clear acrylic plates on top and run it through, and voila, your paper will be super flat again. So now I'm going to pull out the dies, and I'm going to use that thank you die that I was telling you guys about. And I've cut that out 3 times, and then I'm going to use my fine tip liquid glue, and I'm going to glue 2 of them to the top of the base just to give me some extra dimension. Now we are going to alter this, but I'm going to glue it all because I want to save the thank for another card. I really like using the fine tip glue or the multi-purpose glue, but I find the fine tip I can get into those smaller places, but I really like using this kind of glue because you're able to manipulate the die to make sure it's all layered properly, right? So I'm just going to throw some stamp pads on that while I cut out the circle in the vellum, and there it is. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment on the black cardstock. And I'm just going to use an acrylic block. My dog is snoring so loud. Anyhow, sorry. I'm going to use an acrylic block, and I'm going to use the Emboss Buddy and just put some white embossing powder on there. And I'm just going to use my paintbrush just to get rid of any little stubborn grains that didn't want to fall off. And again, using my water resistant board. I just got this at Home Depot. I think I paid like $5 something for a big huge board, and they cut it in all the different size pieces I wanted, which was great. Now I'm so glad this is sped up because I'm so bad at this. I cut my ruler. I never cut through the paper. I've got to bring out scissors, but nevertheless, I don't even know why I bother. You're going to cut off the U, the Y-O-U, because we already have the word U. We're going to cut that off of our die, which I'm going to pull out right now. And I'm going to slow this down just a little. But all you want to do is, I find that if I keep the die closer to the end of the scissors that's closest to my hand, like I don't use the tip of the scissors, I get much more precision. Don't try and snip it with the tips. So, because it's 3 layers thick, right? So just go real slow and just follow the curve of those letters. And the thank, there's a very minimal amount of trimming, and you can trim that up and actually save it for a whole nother card. Now we've got all our pieces together, it's time to do our assembly. So I really enjoy using the multi-purpose liquid glue when I'm assembling my card. If you've watched my videos, you know I have terrible OCD, and if the mat is not even to the project or on the card, it drives me absolutely crazy. So the multi-purpose liquid glue gives you a lot of wiggle room so that you can kind of wiggle that around and get it perfect. And I do put a dab on each corner. I hate my corners lifting, right? So I'm going to use the foam strips, and I'm going to put that on the back of the sentiment. And as always, OCD, I've got to color it the same color as the paper above it, just in case someone inspects it. Or when I take a lot of my photos, you'll see I take a lot of angle photos too, and I don't want the white showing, right? And Inkie fingers, there we go. I've got black all over me. Now I'm going to pull out the sequins from this month's paper pumpkin. There they are in that little baggie, the pink ones. So beautiful. I just love them. And the white ones are from another paper pumpkin. I can't quite remember which one it was right now, but I'm just going to pick out a few. I'm going to pick off all the glue off my take your pick because my sequins are sticking. But I've got a combination of the white iridescent and the clear pink ones, and I've got those kind of where I want them, so I'm going to adhere those all down. And I'm going to use the the fine tip glue pen to put the U on there. Now I'm going to show you how I adhered the vellum to the card, and something bad happened, but I'm going to show you how to fix it. So make sure you watch for the last few minutes so that you can see that. But nevertheless, I'm going to put my U down, and I did have a little bit of the fine tip glue splooge out. I should have tapped it on my silicone mat, but I didn't. So I'm going to grab a baby wipe really quick, and I'm going to wipe that off because it won't even show up on the card whatsoever. But my other little mishap will show up, so I had to fix that. So I'm going to use the glossy accents because in the photo you can see one of the cards had the shimmery crystal effects. I am going to use the glossy accents just for this because I want to let you know that if you have a nice fine shimmer or glitter, you can kind of sparkle that, like just what would the word be? just use your fingers and dust it. That's the word I'm looking for. Just dust some over the top of your glossy accents, and it'll all stick there, and then just give your vellum a shake and it'll come off. So I'm going to apply all of that, and I used a little pin just to kind of even it out in places where I didn't feel like I got real good precision. I should buy some of those little plastic bottles with the fine tip pen, or a tip like the glue, fine tip glue has, but they're I think they're in my wish list, lost somewhere in the land of all the other garbage I don't need. But those I think I would need. I think I would enjoy those. So now I've got that all done. And of course, I didn't glue everything down prior. I have to glue it down at the end. But this is where you're going to see something bad happen. And I put too much glue behind the sequins. I tried to put the fine tip glue everywhere that I had something on the vellum so you wouldn't see it. But here's how you're going to fix it. Take a couple of the long pins, and mine have little bubbles on them, so it's easy to pull out. Just slide the little pin. That one doesn't have a bobble, it fell off. But slide the pins under there, and you'll see all the bottom ones I did this to. So I'm going to grab a couple more pins, and I'm just going to stick them under, and it lifts the vellum up just in that spot, not behind the actual sequin. So there's still glue behind the sequin, but I'm just lifting the vellum where I don't want it touching the card. And then once it's dry, I can pull those pins out. And as you can see by the photos, it's totally fine. Nothing went wrong whatsoever. So I'm going to get that pin in there, and then another one on the side. And honestly, I just thought of this because here it was. Now normally, if I'm not filming videos, it's like, oh, well, whatever, I'll just scrap this and start again. But now I'm filming videos, I gotta figure out a solution. So I just thought, let me stick some pins under there and see if I can fix it. So there you have it. The pins won't be in it for the picture, but definitely remember that tip in the future. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for 22 minutes today for this video. Let me know if you're going to try this. Even send me a link. I'd love to see your photos. So again, thank you for joining me today. And until I see you again, take care and happy stamping. Bye.